Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Punjab has been in news for a long time for right reasons and for the wrong reasons. This state, bifurcated with two countries, has been a focal point of history, of culture, not only of India, but as a matter of fact, it had a universal application. Amazed, don't be. And this is not a new country. Originally, this province or state was called Sapta Sindhu in the Vedic land, with the seven rivers flowing into the sea. And the name of this region, Sapta Sindhu, is mentioned in Ramayana and Mahabharata, the oldest surviving epics. At one time, it was called Panchnada, which means the land of the five rivers. That is much before it was called Punjab, much before that. Panchnada, Panchnadi, five rivers. And that is what this country was. And Panchnad was translated into Persian Punjab, the land of five rivers. And that happened after the Muslim conquest. Panchnad roughly means the same Satluj, Byas, Ravi, Chenab, Jhelum. And the traditionals, the English use the definitive article before the name, the Punjab. Not only the Persians, the Greek called Punjab Pentaponemania, an island delta of the five converging rivers. The Turkic conquerors of India, popularized by Turco-Mughal, gave it the name of Punjab, and that's what it survived. And this province has survived, witnessed migration and settlement of hundreds of tribes from different cultures and ideas. And if there's one melting pot of world cultures and religions, it is Punjab. The Indus Valley civilization flourished in antiquity until their decline for about 1900 years before Christ. 19 centuries before Christ, and that's a recorded history. The first invasions were started with the Rigvedic tribes. And incidentally, let me tell you, Rig Veda was written in Punjab. But then, slowly, it declined in predominance with the rise of the frontier, the initial empires in the antiquity, Alexander and Maurya empires, Kushan Empire, Gupta Empire, Harshvardhan's empire. Punjab continued to be settled by the nomadic people. Huns came, Turk came, Mongolians came, and ultimately the Muslims came. At one time, the part of Delhi Sultanate, the Mughal Empire, the Durrani Empire, and then came in the Sikh Empire, the Khalsa Empire of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So why this Punjab, which has a history of culture, prosperity, one of the most prosperous provinces of India, and before even India as such today, modern India came into being, British period, and before that, Punjab was always regarded as the most prosperous country because the people are very hardworking. That's undeniable. It has been a granary of India. And why is it today becoming absolutely puffed up, hollow Punjab? It's not the same Punjab. Once an economic growth engine of India, it heralded green revolution, pushed India out of the clutches of Pier 480. It was called the bowl of India, wheat bowl of India. And not only that, it did maximum contribution to the defense of India. Population, a mere 2%. Representation in army and services, 11%. Sports, again, the names are iconic. So, today is a pathetic country. Dirty politics, civic scheming politicians, drugs, what not? There is something definitely wrong somewhere. And the real story of Punjab's abject decline from being the most prosperous state of India to the present pathetic low is actually being understated. People don't talk about it. As I said yesterday, people have mostly an ostrich mentality. They bury their heads in the sand. They are like a pigeon who closes their eyes when the cat is approaching. Nobody talks that Punjab is going to be a desert in the next 5 to 10 years. The groundwater level is already absolutely low. And what is the benefit? You have MSP for the farmers or not? Because there'll be no crops. The politically instigated acts of defiance by the Indian politicians, act on by the Pakistani intelligence agents. Punjab has already been reduced to Haryana's poor cousin. Are you aware that an average Haryani is 1.5 times richer than a average Punjabi? And then drug abuse, rising unemployment, loss of morale. And nobody has been able to hold this province. There was a time when Punjab was looked upon as a paragon. Ideally, it was under Pratap Singh Kaur, and then the decline started. As a matter of fact, the poor vision of the political leaders of all hues and cries. I don't doubt whether Congress or Akalis, mostly Akalis, but they had very poor vision. Then socio-political turmoil unleashed by the Khalistani movement. The Punjab GDP in 2018-19 was around 5.75 billion per capita, and per capita income $2,200, and even dollar terms. As if I compare it to 1970, 2018 to 1970, other states have gone much ahead. Today, the per capita income of Punjab is less than even Goa. And Goa has no industry, no agriculture, worth the name, just cashew, pineapple. And today, according to GDP ranking, Punjab is 16th amongst Indian states and union territories. In 1981, it was number one. In 2004, it was number four. And in the space of 15 years, it has come to number 16. So from being number one in 1981 to number 16, and it has slower growth than any other province of India. The problem today, the low growth of the Punjab economy, is because of the dependence on triple A. Now, normally we say that our rating is triple A and we are proud. But triple A in Punjab is a disaster. The first A is agriculture, the second is the army, and the third is America. Agriculture is the prime activity. And today, the agriculturists do not indulge in agriculture. The real productive part of agriculture is delegated to Bihari labor, and the Punjab farmer himself is concerned with illicit liquor, cocaine, LSD, opium, sex, and of course bravado, showing off latest sleek cars. So agriculture is the first thing. Second is army. There's a main occupation. Those who do not pursue agriculture and army, for them the third is there. America, migration to America. And that includes, of course, Canada. So 90% of the Punjab's economic activity is centered around AAA sector. No diversification has been sought under any leadership, whether it was Akalis, whether it was Congress. And these are the two parties which have been ruling Punjab alternately. And then coming to agriculture, where has been the diversification? They are still dependent only on wheat and rice. And that's shameful. And that is why Punjab has slipped on per capita income from first position to 16th position. So the absence of industrialization, the absence of jobs, employment, the youth goes to Canada, America, and the American dream has become so strong that Punjabi girls have begun preferring and marrying NRIs. So to send their children to Canada and America, what's happening? The helpless parents are disposing of their already reduced land. Jobs were only reserved for people belonging to the category of reservation or politically connected. And most of the migrating children carry hatred against the land they were born in. No wonder they rebel against such discrimination. And then the convoluted thing of the political leadership, blind pursuit of personal agenda, has converted Punjab into former Bihar. And there's a curious thing. In 1950s and 60s, Bihar was the most progressive and best administered state in India. When Dr. Sahai was the chief minister, Bihar was deemed to be a byword for administrative efficiency. And today, people like Karpuri Thakur and Lali Yadav have made it the leader of the Bimaru states. And now, Punjab is making it and trying his level best to join those Bimaru states. There's a comment by Mr. Singh Jaspal. Does an average Indian know these achievements and drawbacks of Punjab? As a matter of fact, an Indian should know. Indian know that their dependence on agriculture, they know their contribution in army and sports, but they don't know the fall, the steady fall that has been there. Most at the average Indian. And I agree with you, it should be known to the people because then they'll be able to make proper assessment of the situation now. Now, here I like to add this is ignorance of these facts that makes the politicians manipulate the farmers. They show them the rosy path, forgetting that this rosy path is in fact a path to the shit creek. Now, coming back to the other thing, agriculture based economy now is heavily based on subsidies, on handouts, is parasitic. Free electricity, subsidies on fertilizers, minimum spot price of wheat and rice. And it seems, sometimes that the whole economic activity of Punjab has been propelled on donations and freebies by the state. And that goes against the principle of not giving a fish to a poor person to eat, but to teach him how to kill it. The policy of the subsidies should have been stopped, but they are being politicalized. Everybody wants to give them more and more and more because they get the votes. Special privileges are given to the provinces and communities, and they are a curse on the economic activity of the nation as a whole. It immobilizes the recipients. They don't want to work. And that's why you see the flashy cars, and that's why you see the dependence on the drugs, because it's an easy money. The physical work is done by the Bihari labor. The inputs are heavily subsidized, and the returns, and then all that is income tax free. So what has happened is, over a time, the economic activity stalled, and that's what has happened in Punjab. And as a matter of the farmers' agitation and demands may seem genuine to many people, but it's a reiteration of the demand for freebies as a matter of right, and demand for the three form bills is actually a facade for these activities. And mind you, I once suggested that okay, let's give him MSP, but only to the farms which are less than 3 acres, because then the big wigs would not be able to benefit. They won't tolerate it. Actually, the whole thing is because of the bigger farmers, agents of RTS, and a nexus between the politicians and the landlords. And the politicians use those landlords for generating black income. They get on lease a plot of land, don't throw anything on that, and show crores of rupees worth of return, which is a black money and is converted into white money. So it's a culpability of the state government and its politicians. The allegation that the farm agitation is initiated by Punjab is not unfounded. Now comes a point. Yesterday, Amrinder Singh made a statement that 30 to 40 drones are coming in each day from Pakistan carrying arms and ammunition. And he said that while we are able to down some of them and recover some, but some must have got away. And if that thing continues, you can well imagine that the unemployed and unemployable youth will be fully armed. And then he hinted that the Operation Blue Star may not be far off. And that's the assessment of a chief minister of Punjab. Now, when he is afraid, don't you think that the animosity that is being created against the Sikhs? They say that the agitation is by the farmers, but all criticism is aimed at Sikhs, Punjabis. Now, if you have studied the recent Punjab history of the last 30 years, you would find that once the Green Revolution of Punjab had peaked, it affected socio-political and socio-economic situation in Punjab. Rising population, reduced landholding, reduced income, rising education, make the educated youth idle, and at the same time pessimistic. So the unemployment led to idling, and educated people had two ways: either become Khalistanis, rebels, or become drug addicts. And the inter-party rivalry of Punjab, especially of Congress itself, and competitive politics with the Kalida was the undoing of Punjab. You remember 1948, 84? They say it happened because of the no. It happened because of really because of the fight between Jani Zail Singh and Darbara Singh. Bhindranwale was promoted by Zail Singh to reduce the influence of Darbara Singh, the chief minister. And at that time, Zail Singh was the home minister of India. So for the personal equation, they destroyed the country. And when you create a Frankenstein, Bhindranwale was a Frankenstein created by Zail Singh in collaboration with Sanjay Gandhi. So the inter-party rivalry and intra-party rivalry created a situation which was a national disaster. And the same thing can happen today. Amrinder has its own enemies, and you can be sure that even some central leaders want him to go. So they would like to create a condition. So what Bhindranwala came into being in 1978, where the fight took place between his forces and the Nirankari, and the worst happening when Atwal, DIG Punjab, was murdered, shot dead at the entrance of Golden Temple. That created a situation because Home Minister Dal Singh stopped Darbhai Singh from arresting them. Darbhai Singh wanted to go and arrest the killers of Atwal, and Home Minister said, don't arrest them. The same is happening now. If Amrinder wants to take an action, the High Command would say, don't take action. So the same situation is being repeated. Now, the third is interference by the outsiders. The foreign aid and Punjabis settled outside India want to destabilize. And as I said yesterday, most of the people who are instigating Khalistan are being funded. And if you have seen that most of the vulnerable Sikhs are in three countries, rather four countries: Canada, Norway, England, US, where maximum Sikhs are there and maximum Pakistani immigrants are there. And those are acting as a front, giving finance, promoting Khalistani people. So that's created. And it looks that whatever happened in 1980s might be a repeat. When Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of India, speaks in favor of agitation, he's not addressing the farmers of Punjab. He is addressing the Sikh constituency of Canada and the token representation of other states in this agitation is again being supported by the opposition parties. Now, another thing I'd like to point out, UP is endeavoring to become, by 2025, $1 trillion economy. And Punjab farmers are being engrossed in subsidies and freebies. If Punjab has to grow, it has to move away from traditional agriculture economy, which does not service 86% small landholders. Nobody can deny that these farmers are protesting against contract farming, forgetting that already 86% of the farming is actually being done as a contract farming. And the big landholders employ agricultural labor from UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, and Odisha. So this blockade in Delhi is not in favor of the small landholders, but the big landlords who have free electricity subsidy might be affected. Let's not forget that the small landholders are disposing of their lands to the big landholders for sending the children to America. And even this is becoming difficult. But the reality is that even because of this and because of the socio-economic conditions and the atmosphere being created that Urta Punjab, the flying Punjab, or drug addicted Punjab is now becoming Faltu Punjab, useless Punjab. And it is becoming Fukhra Punjab, puffed up Punjab, and a Khokhla Punjab. And that's what it has become, hollow Punjab. And because of that impression being created, even the investors are shy of going there. The reality is the short sightedness, immediate political gains have been ruling and they have got to be abandoned. Would politicians do it? My guess is as bad as yours. But you need to ponder on it that this province, which was at the height of its glory during the time of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, when Tsar requested him for a treaty of friendship, when Napoleon approached him to join hands so that the British can be thrown out. So internationally he was, or he could have been a leader, an international leader, political leader. Possibly he could have started the process of globalization at that time. Possibly Punjab could have replaced England as the ruling empire in the world, but he failed. And then the decline started. And today Punjab is at the bottom of abyss. Shameful, saddening, disheartening, disappointing. Don't you think so? Thank you.